So here we go. This is apps of integrals 06. When to choose disks or shells. And I switch between a C or a K. I'm not sure which is it's supposed to be, so I think it should be a K, probably. Disks, shells, whatever. Okay. We talked the other day about whether, about the difference between disks and shells. And the idea is that you want to use disks when you have, or you want to use disks versus shells depending on whether you want to have the, whether you want to have the x-axis or the y-axis, right? It doesn't matter disks versus shells. They solve the same type of problem. Okay? The idea is, which is more convenient, the x-axis or the y-axis? You want to think about the following things. Okay? First, is it a multiple choice question? Okay? This is always the most important thing. And I know that sounds dumb, but it is. If you're doing a multiple choice question, look at what your answers are. So sometimes you'll have things like set up the question but don't solve, right? If it's set up the question and don't solve, and you have choices like the following. I'm going to write this out because I forget trying to type this nonsense. If you're doing a multiple choice question and it's, really? Oh yeah, it's always better in the thing. Okay, and it says, set it up but don't solve. And you have a multiple choice question such as this. And all of your answers look like that. Are you using disks or shells? Disks. Right? As a matter of fact, the AP exam does not require me to teach you guys the shell method. It just doesn't. So there is absolutely no multiple choice question where the answer is done in shells. Why? Because that would be unfair to the other kids who were not taught shells. For example, it wouldn't be fair to last year's AP Calc class who didn't make it to learn shells because I didn't have time. Because at this point in the year, we were just starting derivatives, or just starting derivatives. We were just starting integrals. We didn't have time, right? So it wouldn't be fair to those kids who never learned shells. If it's a multiple choice question and it says, you know, set up the integral but don't solve, it's clearly a disk question. Has to be. Okay? That may not be the best way to do the question. It doesn't matter. That's the way that your answer is going to be set up in the question. So, sucks to be you. Okay. Option number 2, or reason number 2 to choose something else. Okay. The second reason you would want to choose an axis over another one is if I can't solve for x or y. Okay. So there's a very good chance that you have a problem and it's set up so that you can't solve for one variable or another. For example, y equals x cubed minus 4x squared plus 12x. Make that x equal something. I dare ya. You can't, right? So I don't know if you're doing that in disks or if you're doing that in shells. I do know that whatever you are doing this in, you're solving this in dx. Does that make sense? Because that has to be done as x cubed minus 4x squared plus 12x. And if that means that you're solving it as disks or shells, that's the one you're choosing. Does that make sense? You must integrate that in x. It has to be. Now, on the AP exam, chances are that means you're solving it in disks. Because again, we were not taught, or we're not required to teach how to solve in shells. Okay? And it just means you don't have the option to switch to something that might be easier. Okay. Now, these are the things that tell you you have to solve in one or the other. Reasons that you might want to switch if you have the option. Okay? The third reason you might want to look for something else. 3. You have to split integral into more than one piece. Okay? This will be the third reason you want to pick one choice over the other. You guys remember, hopefully you remember these, we did this yesterday. Right? So this is where you had, right, it was like this, right? If I do this in y, I now have to do this 3 times, right? 1, 2, 3. Y, bad. Right? But x good. Right? That might be a reason to choose one over the other. Now, on the other hand, beware that sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. The classic problem for that is not that. Do something like this, where, well, I can go this way, and I'm still going from one thing to another thing. But if I go this way, I'm still going. Once I get to this point, I'm still going from one thing to another thing. I have no choice. It still has to be split. So, reasons to choose. Okay. So there are no good choices here. It's lifestyle. Once you get past these 3 reasons, beyond that, you know, revolving around a line instead of an axis it may not actually be easier or harder to use one or the other. It may just be more convenient. Okay? Problem is already set up for you in one versus the other. Beyond that, this is going to sound really, really lazy, but you know, you've already met me. Personal preference. Get good with one and stick with it. Okay? So long as the other ones still apply. Okay? I like shells better than disks. But if it's a multiple choice question, I'm using disks. Okay? So use one versus the other. What I mean by problem is already set up for you in one versus the other, we started to talk about this yesterday. Okay? It is very common for you to see a problem set up this way.
Part 1. Or, sorry, problem 1, part A. Find the area. Part B. Find the volume revolved around the x-axis. Part C. Do the thing we will learn next week. Don't worry about it. Part D. Find the volume revolved around the y-axis. You've already set everything up in part B. As a matter of fact, you'll have set everything up in part A with the x-axis. You'll have set everything up in part B with the x-axis. You'll have set everything up in part C with the x-axis. Part A, B, and C, x-axis. And then all of a sudden in part D, you've got to do the y-axis. Why? Just do it in shells. Right? Okay. If you want, we can stop here, or if you want, I can set up a chart for you of what everything looks like in shells versus disks. Do you want the chart? I was like, I don't care. I just want to do my homework. You can do your homework, I don't care. It's not a problem. Okay. You can ask questions, by the way. I forget how many lines I put into it. I haven't done this one in a while. Okay. Here we go. Ready? This. Go. I should say disc / washer, because I consider them basically the same. Okay. If I'm revolving, okay, so if I'm revolving around the x-axis, or line parallel. Okay, and remember that the x-axis, or a line parallel to it, a line parallel to the x-axis is a y equals, right? That's something that. Okay. Disc washers, I'm integrating in x. Shells, I'm integrating in y. Okay. The formula. I don't remember how I said this. Okay, I'm not gonna write this mistake. Okay. I integrate in x. What does the formula look like? Pi r squared, which is going to make it pi times the integral of f of x squared dx, right? Right, height, sorry. And height is dx. Okay? We integrate in y. And what's the formula? 2 pi r h thickness is going to be 2 pi integral of what's the radius? Nope. I'm integrating in y, first of all. Y. Height will be f of y. Thickness? dy. Ah! Slightly more complicated, right? Okay. Around y axis or line parallel. Okay? I integrate in y, which is going to give me pi r squared h, and it will be pi integral of f of y squared dy. And this will be integrating in x. And the same thing in x, right? Okay. Let me actually, this is not line parallel, right? This is just y-axis. I will write the first one. Line parallel. Let me write the first one. 2x-axis. Right? How does that work? So this one. How do I do that? Picture the picture. So let's say it's up here. Here's my function. I want to hear the whole thing. Let's say this is, yeah, let's call this 4. Bracket. X. Not x minus f of x. 4 minus f of x. Well, that would be a y, not a, yeah. 4 minus f of x. All of it squared? Yeah. Okay. Line parallel to x-axis for this thing. Louder? Almost? Almost? Close to the first time? 4 minus y. F of y dy. I'm going to make this chart. I will make this chart. It will be pretty, and I will post it online. It will be much prettier than this. Okay? I'm not going to do line parallel to y-axis because it would be the same thing, right? Okay? Yeah, this would be y and... What if it were underneath? Good. Okay. Question? Feeling good about this? Okay, work on your homework. Oh, I should